remember this like super like creative hippie ran by and was like, I'm not gonna do a drash, I'm gonna do an interpretive dance. And everybody else afterwards was like, what was that? And I was like, I understood every second, every millisecond of that. I understood it deep within me.
We're dreaming the world to come, spiraling in time, dreaming alive, dreaming alive, dreaming the world to come, dreaming alive, can you hear our song?
Hi, I'm Nomy.
I'm Rebecca.
And this
is Dreaming
the World to Come. This is Dreaming the World to Come, a project where we reimagine time and the ways we relate to it, aligning with ancestral Jewish traditions and honoring the diverse voices and experiences of the diaspora, past, present, and future, and the magnificent humans who've been dreaming of a just world for millennia.
Nomy and I are both queer, non-binary, white, disabled Jews and Hebrew priestesses or priestixes. We live in the Pacific Northwest on Squaxin land, also known as the Stitch House Village, known colonially as Olympia, Washington.
In addition to this podcast, we've created a planner that combines Hebrew, Gregorian, and moon calendars. This year's is called Indwelling Dreams of Olam Haba. And this podcast usually comes out around the beginning of each Hebrew month. We aim for Rosh Chodesh, and it includes our takes on the month and an interview with a contributor who wrote about that month in the planner.
You don't need the planner to enjoy the podcast, but you can still buy it at www.dreamingtheworldtocome.com, and it's on sale for just $5 plus shipping, so we can move these out in the world. They are collector's items now.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a couple months left if you need to like track the Hebrew dates for the rest of 5783. And they have really amazing writings and art, if I do say so myself. And I think you're going to want to have it. It's beautiful. We announced a while back that we won't be doing the full planner again, at least not this year. And we want to let you know that we've decided also that we won't be doing the podcast again after Elul. So we'll have a full cycle of the year, which folks can go back to for resources and inspiration. That will continue to exist. Our website will continue to exist. And we don't know what's next, but we'll continue to update you through our email list and Instagram if you follow us. And we are really creative people who are really dedicated to developing this community. And so you'll continue to be hearing from us, and hopefully we'll be able to support your Jewish practice and your liberation.
Yeah. And everything that we've put into the website is really a huge resource for earth-based, feminist, radical, anti-Zionist community and practice. So please continue to use the plethora of resources that we have on our website. And we hope that the archive of the podcast will also be a resource throughout the years.
Dreaming the world to come.
Tamuz!
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 Just doing some vocal warm-ups to get ourselves really ready for this.
Yeah, just warming up for the podcast. So, Nomy, Tamuz, the beginning of summer. What are your associations with this time of year?
Well, we are moving from June to July is the Tamuz time. It is like literally we have Rosh Chodesh, so the first day of the month of Tammuz, and then the next day is the summer solstice, which in Hebrew is called Tekufat Tammuz. The tekufot are the turning points in the year. So it's the solstices and the equinoxes. And so it's the longest day of the year. And when there's so much daylight, there's, also all this heat. And I'm really looking forward to swimming in a lake. I have not swam in a lake yet this season, but that's a very strong association with this time of year, and eating ice cream and like hanging out outside with friends. And, usually, at least as a kid, it's like you don't have as much to do. For me, it was like a lot of running around the neighborhood with other kids. And, it's funny though, because I'm looking out the window and it's actually quite gray and dreary out today, but weather is a little hard to predict these days. It was like 90 degrees a week or two ago, and now it's like probably 65 or something.
And I'm
But
so glad it
yeah,
rained yesterday.
yeah, it makes the plants happy.
It really does.
Yeah. And there aren't really like major holidays in Tammuz, but we do get into this kind of intense grieving time that I'm sure we'll go more into. Oh, I wanted to say about the Tekufat Tammuz, that on the Tekufot, there's this tradition of changing out any standing water in your home within the first few hours. And so I wanted to ask you, Rebecca, like when we say in the first few hours, is that from dusk, from like when I'm trying to remember what the exact, would it be like the 2nd of Tammuz? Like, so like in those first few hours of evening that you change out all the waters? Is that how you would do it?
I remember us talking about this last year, I think, or maybe the year before or something, but I don't know. I'm not like a strict for anything person, really.
Yeah,
per
totally.
se.
Same.
So,
but I need to know when the angels are changing their guards exactly.
I do love that teaching, though. I love that the teaching that there's like an angel for each season and that they're changing. And I'm someone like the only water that I ever leave out is for my animals, and like leave some water out for the birds and insects outside. But I don't like ever leave out water that I'm going to drink uncovered. I've been superstitious about that, or I don't even think it's superstitious. I just think it's like just water collects energy, and so but there are Jewish teachings about demons being caught in open water. So anyway, it falls aligned with that too.
Well, so I'm thinking like I should, switch out any water that's in my water bottles, because I do have like a water bottle that I keep by my bed, and it's not open, it's closed, but I like will just keep kind of like refilling it when it's done, but sometimes it might have water that's been standing. It does say that you don't have to worry about water that's salted or that's going to be boiled. And I keep these like 3 little dishes that I call my salt bogs, that are just like 3 little dishes of salt water in my office that like keeps me connected to the ocean and the great mother is how I relate to them. And so it sounds like those are okay. I can just like let those stay bog like. But yeah, I think like dog and cat water and our bottles of water will get changed out on the Tekufa.
Yeah. Give it back to the earth.
Yeah. I saw some kind of interesting stuff on the Jewish's Instagram about how some people relate the instead of angels, they think of the 4 wives of Jacob as the guardians of the water. And there's this whole thing about iron being protective, and like that the acronym of their names all together is the Hebrew word for iron. And anyway, I'm just mentioning it because it was interesting, but I don't know enough about it to really teach it in this podcast. But check her out if that is interesting to you. Jewish's.
Yeah, I was thinking that it was maybe a medieval Jewish practice, because there's a lot of stuff about iron and metal in medieval Jewish magical practices.
Cool. Yeah, and it was talking about blood also, and like, yeah, things I'm very interested in, and kind of made me want to know more about blood honoring rituals, because it was saying like the water is poisoned with Lilith's blood or something, and I'm just like, Lilith gets such a bad rap. I always want to reclaim and reinterpret anything that's about Lilith doing bad things.
Yeah, me too. I love Lilith. Yeah. This time of year, we've been talking about this a lot, actually, preparing for this podcast. I feel like we've had like more talks than normal about Tamuz and this time of year, because as a kid, I remember being excited that school was going to be over because I really felt very constricted by school. But there was also like, as an adult, like kind of some dread about the summertime. And talking to friends who grew up differently than I did, like hearing that they felt dread because it was like school was over and they didn't have like people around to spend time with, or and that like more hard things happened in the summer.
Yeah, that when we were talking about this earlier, it was reminding me of an essay by Miriam Kaba, who wrote the book We Do This So We Free Us. And she has this essay, I think it's called I Hate Summer. But she keeps talking about how she hates summer and about how there's less like structured things for people to do, so there's more like people hang out on the street, and then she's like there's always more police violence, there's always more arrests, more trouble and targeting, and my upbringing was not like that. It's just a really different experience than I've had of summer. The one kind of quote holiday that happens in Tammuz is the 17th of Tammuz, it's a fasting day, Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, that's marking the day that the walls of Jerusalem were breached by the Romans, leading up to the destruction of the Second Temple. And so there's this time where it's like this sense of dread and of like impending doom. And then when that's like 3 weeks before Tisha B'Av, which is then like the commemoration of the destruction of the temple. But there's this period when it's like not destroyed yet, but it's going to be, or that something bad is going to happen. And
that feels also related to just like this time of year. It's become, with climate chaos, a really precarious time of year, because if we don't get the rains that we need now, it will lead to the fires. And I mean, this year the East Coast already had all those fires, and we have for a few years here had fires from Oregon and California for longer than that.
And Washington.
And Washington. So there's like this other taste in the turning of this time around like praying for rain, hoping that that there can be an avoidance of this like devastation on life from the smoke and the fires. And it's reminding me of I'm curious about how this was for our ancient ancestors too, because they, there was this time of like, the temple walls were breached, and so it's this time of grieving. But also the month of Tammuz is named after the Sumerian god Dumuzi, who was like a shepherd who gets sent to the underworld and then is rescued by their sister. And like, so the two of them end up sharing the underworld. Like she's down there 6 months, he's down there 6 months, which I think is also like an explanation for like seasonal changes. But that there was, in Ezekiel, there's a reference to women crying at the doors to the temple, and for Dumuzi, Tammuz, you can see the language connection there. And I wonder about like that Tammuz represents, the grain being cut down and used for food, but that there's a death that comes with the plants dying. And so like there's like a mourning that humans, that's my interpretation of the Ezekiel piece, is like there's a mourning that humans are making for the plants transition too, which to me is very sweet, that there's this like we recognize that they give their life for our life. And also just like this human kind of piece of like, when there's big changes in our life, whether they're positive or negative, there's often grief involved, and that's part of how we feel the joy of change too, is by expressing the grief. So that's my interest in that part.
Yeah, That's so interesting because, I mean, most harvest festivals are so joyful, all about abundance and like, wow, look at how we've been provided for and, look at what we've done.
I think Ezekiel's like critical of them crying is
Mhm.
is part of it. But I don't
Huh.
know if that's like a commentary on like criticizing women for being connected to, a more
Mhm.
polytheistic life or
Well, I love the part of that story where it says that they were actually like doing plays, like reenacting
yes.
the death of Dumuzi or the sending of Dumuzi into the underworld. And so anytime we see these glimpses of like what women or other people that weren't like the patriarchy doing in those times, I'm just like, oh, what were they up to? Like, okay, they're like at the gates of the temple, like doing this play. And I know last year's planner, Amanda Nube talked about them having these statues of Dumuzi with lead for eyes. And when it would get really, really hot, the lead would melt and just like stream like tears down their face. And that was my inspiration for the art last year, which was so simple, but kind of my favorite
Oh, so
piece of art
striking.
from that planner. Just like
Yeah.
these like dark, crying, dripping eyes. Yeah, I love knowing about people's art. It's just like,
Yeah.
okay, this is how they were observing the turning of the seasons.
Yeah. I love hearing about that too. I love knowing that like theater was always a part of ways for people to process their life experience.
Mhm,
And what I also
mhm,
hear in that is there was a ritual to the theater because it happened every
mhm,
year. It was
mhm,
like a play that got
mhm,
enacted more than one time. And so I feel like we get a glimpse into
mhm,
women or non binaries, like their ritual practices through that too.
mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Gay theater.
Gay theater. Yeah, you want to build some statues with lead eyes. Do some theater.
We're like trying to get lead out of our
Yeah,
water and stuff now.
I know, right? I know. Speaking of theater and stuff, I was thinking about how I used to often in July go on tour with like if I was in a band or, different projects that I toured with, like the Sex Workers Art Show or Sister Spit and things like that. And I remember it being really hot, really, really hot in the South. But like currently, like I don't know if I would get in a van and drive around the country in July. That actually sounds
Mm.
dangerous just on like a climate level. And I was talking with a mentee recently about their travel plans and they were wanting to go across the South and stuff. And we were like, I wonder, because it's
Yeah.
like, I remember there being like one place that we drove through that was like 108 degrees and it was like, oh my God, this is unreal. But that's like a pretty normal temperature in, the Southwest right now in the summers.
Yeah,
Just
I
thinking.
also, having worked on farms in the summertime, I can see why it would also be like a time of grieving too, because it's just like grueling being out in the field in the sun. And like, I mean, nowadays it's so different. I don't know what their agricultural life was like back then, but like, you're worried about different insects eating the plants or animals or just like being able to grow enough vegetables to feed everybody. And yeah, that I could see how you'd want to like get out that like energy of fear that is really, I think, a deeper
Right.
grief of like the unpredictability of life and that we just don't
Mhm.
actually have control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love the ways that our guest this month, Micah, talks about the loss and then also the intensity of that summer brightness and like kind of saving that for times when that brightness isn't available.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Micah talks about in the piece about that oranges, they let go of a lot of their new green fruit to make room for the ripening of others. And a lot of trees do that. A lot of nut trees, fruit
Mhm.
and nut trees do that
Yeah.
too. And just like admiring the beauty of that because it's like a giving back to the earth and a like, yeah, just that how we need to let go in order to make space for other things to ripen and bloom. It's such a beautiful metaphor and literal experience.
Well, with that, maybe we should move on to our interview. Enjoy this interview with Mica Amichai.
Dreaming alive, dreaming alive, dreaming the world to come.
Mica, hi.
Hi. Nice to see you.
Hello.
Hey, Nomy.
I don't know if we've actually met each other before, have we?
I think we've met a bunch of times in like kind of
Oh.
overwhelming context.
Okay.
We've shared space many times.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for telling me that. And it's nice to have a not overwhelming, or hopefully not overwhelming context to actually have a conversation. It's really good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Yeah. So I'm going to
Cool.
read your bio to orient people to who you are. Mica Amichai, they, them, is a Mizrachi, Ashkenazi, queer, non-binary, neurodivergent Jewish person living in the Bay Area. They are deeply connected to the earth and love gardening, playing with their dogs, birdwatching with friends, and getting far away from roads and electricity. They work hard to infuse urban planning with social justice. Follow them on Instagram at Mica, MICA _Amichai, AMICHAI. Welcome.
Thanks. That's me.
We are so grateful for your contribution to the Indwelling Dreams of a Lamm Haba planner, and really love the story about the tapuz, the oranges, and that association with Tamuz. And I'm really excited to hear your perspective on the piece that you wrote, or anything that you want to share about your process or about Tamuz in general.
Yeah, so I wrote that Tamuz always reminded me of, I always really liked the word tapuz. There's something just like, it feels good in my mouth. And so do oranges. And tapuz means orange. So I wrote about oranges beginning their growth as oranges from flower to orange in this month, and how many of the like little green oranges need to get dropped in order to create the opportunity for the other ones to reach maturity. And I always also really love that oranges taste like summer, but they're ripe in the winter. So I was kind of like exploring this, like, okay, it's summer. It's like I find it very easy to like kind of get carried away with just like, oh, I'm just like so happy and joyful and social and like not taking things seriously. Sometimes in the summer feels like very light. And so kind of like bringing both to all seasons. So like oranges, storing some of that joy and lightness for the winter, and then also the reminder in the summer that even if we feel very joyful and light, that there's always grief and pain and stuff that's existing at the same time. And I like all the things together.
Yeah.
So Jewish.
I'm very Jewish.
Yes, you are. I always brag to people that you're my rabbinical school dropout friend. Which I actually think is more Jewish than even becoming a rabbi somehow.
Can we hear that story? I'm so curious.
The rabbinical school dropout story?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I wanted to like do spiritual counseling, and like in particular in prisons or like in drug rehabs. And that was kind of the goal that I went into rabbinical school with. And then I was there and it was really geared for like being a pulpit rabbi. And I was just like, I don't want to do that. And also I don't really feel good here. So I left. Yeah.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we were just talking about Tammuz as this time of like that juxtaposition of the grief and the joy and also the uncertainty. It's an interesting month because it doesn't really have holidays other than the 17th of Tamuz, which I'd never even heard of before we started doing our planner, and like really attuning to dates in that way. So yeah, I appreciate learning about Tamuz from you. And I love the orange metaphor. That's really helpful in thinking about that, like preparing and holding the joy and moving that forward, and also the loss and the sacrifice piece. Yeah.
Mica, I would love to hear if you feel moved to share some things about your experience with Jewishness growing up.
Yeah, sure. My dad's from Iran and then grew up mostly in Israel. And I grew up in like a very like mizrachi community in LA. So Israel and like being Israeli, that was kind of like pretty central to half of the Jewish identity that I grew up in. And in particular, it was like Israeli to me really meant mizrachi.
Mm-hmm.
The community in LA was like the Israelis were all the Mizrahim. And my mom's Ashkenazi, and I went to Jewish day school, and then that was more like Ashkenazi. They actually worked really quite beautifully together because the home base Mizrahi Jewish identity was more celebrating holidays together, singing songs together, and like picnics and beach time. And the Ashkenazi side was more like learned and like studying and structured, which felt less joyful, but I think I actually really got a lot out of that. I think that the structure that Judaism provided was really useful for me growing up. Even just I remember as a kid, I got my little siddur at school, and I'd like wake up and like open it and say the Shema. I, like just like took on some of these like daily habits that like were like vital for my well-being as a child. I had like amazing rabbis in my high school. I went to a Jewish high school, and like I think actually really part of why I loved Judaism and went to rabbinical school was because of the teachers that I had in high school who like introduced me to meditation and interpretive dance and like this very creative, explorative approach to discovering Judaism and ourselves that really helped shape me.
That's so cool.
That was cool. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I didn't experience anything like that growing up around Jewishness. It was kind of dry. Yeah. I love that interpretive dance as a way into your own Judaism. That's so cool.
Yeah, that really
Like,
stands out. I remember this rabbi, like super like creative hippie rabbi, that was like, I'm not gonna do a drash, I'm gonna do an interpretive dance. And everybody else afterwards was like, what was that? And I was like, I understood every second, every millisecond of that. I understood it deep within me.
Oh, yes.
oh my God, I love that. I'm curious about being neurodivergent and engaging with Jewishness and Jewish text and stuff. And just like when you said that the interpretive dance like really spoke to you, I'm just like, oh, that's so cool. I'm so glad that you had that experience. And I'm just curious what it was like for you. And I know I don't know your story or, the specifics of your neurodivergence, but I'm like, oh, Judaism is just so text heavy, and just curious about other ways of working with people or other ways of relating to it. So anything you would want to share around that, I'm curious.
Honestly, like when I started studying Talmud and text, I was like, this is how I think. Like, like there's something very neurodivergent about Talmud because it's so
Totally.
nonlinear, so associative. Time
Totally.
doesn't matter. Like that's how I function in the world. I'm like,
Totally.
what is time and space?
Totally.
I don't know. I'm in my own dimension. So like getting to like join an interdimensional conversation just like worked so well for me.
Yeah, I feel like that's why we're such good friends.
Yes, and that opportunity for like making connections that I feel like in like very linear thinking, it's like I don't know if that connection is allowed, but like
Right.
in Jewish study, it's like all connections are encouraged, and that's how my brain works. I'm just like constantly connecting things. That's just what it's doing right now, all the time.
Yeah. Fuck
Well,
yeah.
it's so interesting because I have felt like, as a neurodivergent person, have felt like that doesn't feel accessible to me, like the Talmud. But for me, I think a lot of it is a like well, I didn't learn Hebrew as a kid and I don't know. So like there's a language barrier there for me. But then whenever there's like an interpretation of the text and it's just like free, like Svara, for example, is very difficult for me because it's like text study of the Hebrew, you know. But then when there's like a space where it's like there's the interpretation and then you can just like have a conversation. I mean, I feel like Mica, like the way that we've connected, we just, if there's the free place to like talk about mystical things and Jewish magical things, like we can go there so easily together. And so it's really like validating for me to hear you say that about Talmud, because I'm like, oh, it has nothing to do with the Talmud. It's like a language thing. And it's like, actually, it does jive with my way of thinking too.
Yeah, you totally, like the way that you think and the way that you like make connections with your own experience, I feel like is exactly what the Talmud is doing. So that's too bad that the way that it is taught and discussed is like actually like very heady and inaccessible a lot of the time. I resonate with that too. I think have like a little bit more of a like, I'm just gonna do it my own way approach, even if it makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah, I've had that experience with you so many times. You're just like, well, this is how I'm doing it. This is how I'm thinking about it. And it's so validating.
That's so important. And that's really good modeling for other people.
Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate that. It doesn't necessarily win fans or friends, but it makes me happy.
Well, it won me as a friend. I'm like, you're one of my favorite thinkers.
Like, I've heard you say that before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really
I just like love your perspective and orientation, and like you're able to pinpoint things and bring a perspective that is new and that I haven't heard before, and that helps illuminate something within myself.
Helps illuminate something within yourself? What do you mean?
Like that I'm like, oh,
illuminate?
Like, I don't know what the word that I'm looking for.
Sorry, no, I think we both heard eliminate, but I think you said illuminate.
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 Yes. Illuminate. Okay. You're like, wow, you're just eliminating toxic elimination.
Love that. Illuminating some things and eliminating other things.
Yes.
Wow.
We have a little bit more time, and we'd love to hear from you any visions of the world to come that you would like to share.
Visions of the world to come.
Or dreams of the world to come.
I think part of my like practice in the world is to like live in my own world that I like better. And that's part of my like vision of the world to come, of like even like in relationships with each other and with animals and the earth, and like seeing that as all part of the same relationship. It's just like what I'm up to in my head when I'm like in the world is kind of like equalizing everything into like one whole interconnection. That's a lot of my vision, is just a lot of like ongoing and ever-present care for ourselves and each other. And then when there's so much space for that, then there's no space left for anything that's not that.
Yeah.
Right now it just feels out of whack, you know? It's out of whack. Yeah. I know that's a very simplistic way of putting it.
I love it.
But thank you for carrying that vision, because when you say that, I'm like, oh, well, I hear you that that's like your own world in your head, but also that is the world that we live in, and there are a lot of obstacles to that perception, but it is the reality, actually.
Amen. Yes, it is. Yeah, it feels not that simple to like make all the like good choices in the systems that we live in. So I think that also part of my like vision for the world to come, like, and I wrote about this a little bit in my piece of like it not being perfect and like allowing a lot of space for like imperfection and mistakes and brokenness and like falling down and getting up. And that's like a really big piece of the world to come for me. It's not like an idea of like everything is going to be like exactly perfect all the time. It's like whatever is can be supported.
Yeah. Amen.
Amen.
Is there anything else that you want to say to us or to people that might be listening about anything we've talked about or anything we haven't gotten to?
Well, I don't know who the listeners are or anything, but I just started studying Sefer Yetzirah and I'm loving it. And I'm like putting into the universe that I want more queer mysticism, queer
Yes.
Jewish mysticism. So yeah,
Mm.
let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yes.
Yes, please. Let me know if you're. I actually was talking with Karina Drash the other day about, I don't know if you know them, but they're another previous contributor to the planner and they're an astrologer and an artist. And they're also studying Sefer Yetzirah. And we talked about having like a study group. So it kind of seems like
Ooh.
things might be already like there's lots of people that are desiring that. So maybe I'll try to connect all the people I've been talking to about doing that
Ooh.
together.
Yeah, I want to do
Yes.
that.
And I'd love for that to, I don't know if this is what's already happening, maybe it is. I'd love for like as part of that to do some like more like concrete visualization of the world to come. Like I love that you asked me what my image for like the future and the world to come is, and I need help. I feel like doing that like visioning together and like really holding it together as part of like a mystical study and practice would be so powerful.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
such a good idea. Because the Sefer Yetzirah is about the building blocks of the world, like how the world was formed. So how do we form the world to come as we're studying the original form?
You know, it's so amazing too. I feel like there's so many things around like the structures that have been holding my Jewishness for the last number of years that are kind of crumbling. I mean, including this project, like not that it's crumbling, but that we're coming to completion. We won't be doing the planner again. We only have 3 more episodes of the podcast and then we're ending. And so that feels very Tamuz of like, okay, some things are falling away. And what is this next piece? It sounds like there's like some kind of focus group type work around Jewish queer mysticism and calling in the world to come. That's like the next piece. That's promising. That's the orange that we can look forward to in the winter.
Do you see my cat is like clawing at my necklace?
A little paw. That's really sweet.
So sweet. Hi, Bori.
Hi, Puri.
Oh my God. Oh, so
Aw.
sweet.
That's such a like affirming gesture.
Like when we're talking about all this stuff.
She's like, yes, the world to come. Yes, I'm there.
I feel paranoid about my shirt. Okay, good. Because it
Why?
says white people's work and it has people smashing white supremacy. But when you only see the top, all it says is white supremacy.
That's like, I have one of those J-Fred shirts that says turfs are trafe, and I love it so much, but I like always wear some kind of suspender. Like right now I have a picture of my dog on me.
That's
But
amazing.
but like when I wear it with how I wear it, you only see turfs. And I'm like, well, that can't be worn in public.
Really funny. Now I'm looking at my shirt. I'm actually wearing kind of an appropriate shirt. It says the future is crystal queer.
Yes.
Oh yes. Oh, love it. Yeah, the future is crystal queer.
Well, Mica, it has been lovely to talk with you, and we're excited to put this together and share it with the world.
Thank you so much for having me and for all the work that you two do. Like you're such like Gadols of our generation, and it's been really beautiful to like get to see both of your life's work like as we've gotten older in community. It's really special and I'm really honored to be here and part of it.
Thank you. Thanks for making the time, and I look forward to continuing to get to know you.
Likewise.
Dreaming alive, dreaming alive, dreaming the world to come.
willow meditation for the Hebrew month of Tamuz. Take a few breaths, feeling your body relax and become flexible like willow. Willow is a plant that processes water with ease, holds stream beds taut, and helps us process our grief. This time of year, our ancestors, and in our current lives of climate chaos, we're worried it'll be too hot and we won't have the sustenance to sustain our plants and grow our food. Willow is here to bring you comfort and help you process these worries and grief. At the end of Sukkot, we beat willow on the earth to mimic what we wanted the earth to do, beat down rain and sustain us through the year. So source those prayers now. Willow is our sustainer, helping us through, giving us hope. When willow got eaten up by deer in Yellowstone and the wolves were reintroduced, the willow was one of the plants that grew back and created food for beaver and restored the habitats. So we can call on willow and trust that they will help us where us humans can't. Willow grows so easily and abundantly if they are allowed to. So breathing into permission to grow, permission to be sustained, and permission to have hope. Thank you, Willow. Welcome to our segment called This Way to Olam Haba, where we talk about things in the world that are pointing us towards the world to come, Olam Haba. And this month we want to talk about the beauty and spirit of the possibility of the earth regenerating from human destruction and effects humans have made on the planet. And
specifically around like species that have been close to extinction being able to bounce back. This is something that, like, when I hear these stories makes me feel so hopeful, like whether or not humans are able to survive, that like it doesn't actually take that long. Actually, it feels hopeful for humans too, like that it doesn't actually take that long for a species to bounce back and regenerate.
Yeah, I love that you brought up humans, because maybe we can bounce back and regenerate with a different consciousness that's honoring of all the other species. And these stories give us hope. And, we've specifically wanted to share this in Tamuz because it is this time of grieving traditionally, and also with the current climate chaos around forest fires. There are these examples just in the last less than 40 years of a lot of life coming back. Like in 1995, the wolves were reintroduced to Yellowstone National Park, and that was just 30 years ago on Shoshone, Cheyenne, and Crow land. And with the wolves, they've just brought 31 wolves from Canada to that area. And what happened was that the wolves started keeping the deer population under control, who were eating a lot of vegetation. And also the elk began to wander further from the edges of the water. So they were eating a lot of the wildlife at the edges of rivers. And so as the elk went deeper into the timber and just like moved around more, and the deer population was more regulated, then that invited the cottonwood and the willow to grow back. And willow is one of the main plants for beaver. So the beaver came back, and they started building dams, which created more fish and muskrats and other animals, which attracted hawks and eagles and bears. And the bears started eating like kind of the leftovers of what the wolves had killed. And so it just like changed everything like in less than 30 years, which is so incredible. And more birds came because there were more trees growing, and like the banks of the rivers became more stable because there were more trees growing. And so all the diversity of life in that area changed in a really short time, which is so hopeful for our world.
Wow. Yeah, I have chills just thinking about how, wolves have been really demonized, like in fairy tales. And it's like one of the villains of childhood. And like thinking of wolves in that way, and the way that like ranchers would just shoot wolves on sight, and and just knowing how that can impact the whole ecosystem in that way. They're really needed.
Well, I also want to talk about whales, which are one of my most favorite, or not favorite, but like animals that I feel most connected to in the world, especially humpback whales. And speaking of dreaming the world to come in dreams, they're an animal that's shown up in my dreams since I was a kid really regularly. And and I was remembering when I was in elementary school, my grandmother gave me this book called Whale Nation, and I was like totally fascinated by looking at the pictures. But then towards the end of the book, it tells the history of the whaling industry, and I was so heartbroken and sad I couldn't even look at that part of the book very much. But around that time that she gave me that book, 1986 probably, is when they banned commercial whaling. And since that time, many humpback whale populations are almost 93% back to what they were. I think there were like 450 humpback whales at that time.
Humpback?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so they've made a tremendous comeback in the last 35 years or so. And I just love them. They're such sweet, deep healers and lovers, and they really help us with carbon emissions. So whales store a humpback whale, I think, stores something like 33 tons of carbon in their body.
Just in its body. Wow.
Yeah. And so when they die, their bodies go deep into the sea where the carbon gets stored for a very long time. So they're an important part of making life on Earth more sustainable for many animals, including humans. And it's so hopeful that in such a short amount of time that they're back and thriving in many ways.
Yeah.
There's this person, Michaela Harrison, who sings to the whales. She's known as the Whale Whisperer. And I heard an interview with her with Adrienne Marie Brown, and she said, yeah, sometimes the whales, I'll get like messages from the whales, and they're kind of funny. And one of the messages that she got from the whales was that the whales are saying, save the humans. Which is like so sweet. That we've been like, save the whales, and they're like, save the humans. I know they love us. They care about us.
Wow.
They do.
Wow. Yeah, whales are such singers. Like they have such long-term memory that they're like singing these songs, and they'll I mean, I don't know if this is true for all species, but I know that some of them will they start a song and they'll just keep building on it throughout their life, and they'll return to the beginning of the song again and then keep singing it all the way through and add more on and then go back to the beginning. And yeah, it's like this storytelling and record keeping, and also that they speak completely different languages from each other. They recognize each other from their songs, and if they meet a new whale, they don't know what the other whale is saying, they have language.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what I've read about, there's a
so
lot of
cool.
mystery behind the songs of why they sing, but it's also, I think, mostly the males, at least with humpbacks, that are
Yeah,
singing. So it's
interesting.
part of, I imagine it's
Cool.
part of mating.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I've just made up a bunch of stories in my head. I'm like, the moms sing to the babies and the babies learn it from their moms, and then but I don't know if any of that is true.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, what's cool about it, of what I've learned, is this uniqueness to each of their songs, and that there's not necessarily a total rhyme and reason to it, which is so beautiful. It's well, it's just singing to sing. I got to hear whales singing one time with an underground or an underwater microphone. It's really beautiful.
Wow.
Do you wanted to share about the butterflies?
Yes. Yeah, so a couple weekends ago I was in Los Angeles for a bar mitzvah for a student of mine, and while we were there, we were like, it can be hard to connect with the land in a new place when you're just there to do a specific thing, and especially a big city. So we're like, oh, well, what can we do to kind of see what the land is like here? And I had heard about these butterflies, the El Segundo blue butterflies, that have come back from the brink of extinction. They're indigenous to that area. And so we were like, oh, let's go see these butterflies. And we'd heard you could go to the Museum of Natural History, and they have one of those butterfly pavilions and probably different kinds of migrating butterflies and stuff. But I was like, no, I want to see the ones that are from here and that are have come back. And so we went down there, and what it turns out, it's actually a very protected area, and it's part of this whole, it's the Bologna wetlands that are being protected and regenerated. So that was really cool to see these wetlands there. And then there's this fenced off area with a dirt path that goes around the outside of the fence that's essentially walking next to a freeway or something. So we were like, oh, this isn't a place for humans to visit. It's actually the fenced off area is protected so that these butterflies can come back. And there's a certain kind of buckwheat, the sea cliff buckwheat, that they and are in a relationship with, and that buckwheat had gotten, mostly replaced and displaced, and there were other kinds of buckwheat or other plants that those butterflies can't really live with. And there's all this ecological damage there. It's really near to the Los Angeles airport. There's an oil company there, and it's kind of funny at this point because so apparently insects aren't protected in California. I think they're on a national registry, but in terms of state protections, they don't have any because they're an insect. But apparently now the main funding for their protection is coming from the oil company and the airport, probably because activists have said hey, you've destroyed this indigenous species. And I guess there's now just 3 places where these butterflies live, and that's one of them. So we were we drove around, we saw a sign that said butterflies here. We were like, okay, there's the butterflies. But my friend who lives there, who told us about them, said that in late August and early September, if you go by there, that it's just clouds of periwinkle blue butterflies in the air. And obviously there's some irony in flying to Los Angeles and driving by the butterflies that have been so threatened by oil and air travel. And I was there anyway, and it was really good for me to like be able to just see like, oh, here's this land where these butterflies live and feel connected to them in that, and also be like, oh, that's not a place for me to hang out and be with the butterflies, but I'm glad to know about them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
species are returning. It's so
Yeah.
heartwarming and hopeful that amidst all of the difficult things, that this is what we're dreaming into more of.
Yeah.
Love the animals.
Yeah. May we learn from them as we get to witness their return. Yeah. So that's our Tamuz podcast. We don't have a lot of announcements right now, but the planner is on, I don't even know, like bargain basement sale now. It's $5, which is ridiculous and a
Screaming
great deal.
deal.
Yeah. So $5 plus shipping and handling. So I think that's like $14 total.
Get them while they're hot,
And
people.
yeah, and I guess whatever ones don't get sold by the end of the year we'll probably recycle or
They come in
I
a
don't
really
know,
cool
build.
box too. The box is really beautiful.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, I have a pallet of those boxes here. You can buy a box online for, no, just kidding. We don't have them on our website. I have a lot of those really beautiful Dreaming the World to Come boxes with this like embossed gold logo on them. They're real nice. Yeah, so get your planner, listen to the next few podcasts and then go back and start listening to them again from the beginning, and keep an eye on what we're up to, and we hope that you have a really great Tammuz. Fire on the mountain top, ancient signal of rebirth. Fire on the mountainside, lessons from a mother. She says, burn, burn, burn it all. If you can't be grateful, you will learn, learn, learn to fall and call this moment home. That which dies must fall away, calling forth another day. Don't hold on to that which must decay. Let the opening light the way. Live in love and pray for rain. Open wide, embrace the pain. It will start again, and it will never be the same. Fire on the mountain top, ancient signal of rebirth. Fire on the mountainside, lessons from a mother. She says, burn, burn, burn it all. If you can't be grateful, you will learn, learn, learn to fall. Call this moment home.